So, I wanted to post my thoughts on something that's been around for a while now by other colleagues, Mad Munchkin and Lightning Bliss in particular, regarding fans and how they behave. I know I'm late to the party on this, but I wanted to share my piece on this subject for a while and provide my own spin on it. And I had to think it through for a while before doing anything. To recap, there have been fans or people who enjoy one's content where they assume that they are privileged they can be friends with them or be close with them. Now, as a whole, it's fine if you enjoy the content, and the willingness to be friends with them can happen, but that's hardly a guarantee. Unfortunately, this has been a case where it's so abused, it has influenced toxic behavior. Maddie and Bliss's videos explained it best to where I can't do much justice comparatively. So, if you haven't already, check those videos out first. In fact, I encourage you to pause this one and watch them as I have them linked in the description. It's silly saying this, but I'll give you a few seconds. Okay, so for those who have actually watched them, you kind of have a basic idea of what they addressed. The fact that friendships grow organically, but some people don't take that into account. They act entitled, they assume they can get closer without any effort, some are desperate that they do everything at once, and some are just fucking creeps. I even came across defending Bliss at some point by some moron who entered an elevator during the last BronyCon. Upon acknowledging this, I too had some of these encounters in my younger years. Now, part of talking about this was someone asking me about how to be friends with those who you idolize, which also happened at BronyCon. As I put a pin on that, I'm going to share my personal experiences. Comparatively, they're not as crucial as the experiences Bliss and Maddie had, but there are some recent events that should bring something new to the table. I hope it all helps out in the long run. Winding the clocks back to the summer of 2012, I ran into 3 of these common instances. The first was an anonymous Tumblr user who asked me various questions and later dragged me in a Skype call, rambling endlessly on for an hour or so while dramatically changing the subject with also said in between. At most, this was a 14-year-old kid, so he apparently didn't know any better. What's worse is that he kept pushing me into talking to him whenever I was silent. It was very exhausting to say the least, so I had to stop and end the conversation. He would ask me when I'm available, and I would answer with, "We'll see what happens. I have work and school to take care of." I didn't want to upset him since he was a kid, but I didn't want to talk to him after that. Fast forward a day later, and he already tried to get in contact with me with no consent while I was on my break from work. My inboxes and my social media were flooded with his messages, so immediately he wasn't taking my real-life priorities into account, and he didn't understand the basic idea of personal space. At this point, I didn't want to deal with him any longer, and apparently I asked Saberspark and his other colleagues, who at the time I was able to verbally interact with, and they had the exact same issue with this kid. So, in short, I blocked him. After he found out, he had a temper tantrum as he posted questions on my Tumblr with caps lock, such as, "I can't believe you blocked me," to which I dropped the hammer on him and typed down a long essay of a response. He would give me apologies every other week, even after I told him to give me space. In other words, stop talking to me. He wouldn't grasp it, so I just ignored him afterwards until he faded away. A second of these was another user who added me on Skype and asked me for an interview. I told him at that time that I had to leave for school, and what's worse, he never said anything about himself. Instead of being professional about it, he pouted and said he likes my OC and wants to know me more. I would open myself up to newcomers, but the way he showed himself was very uncomfortable. He just added me and asked for an interview. No introduction, no casual conversation, nothing whatsoever. I would later found out that he repeated the same behavior with other people to where someone made a YouTube video about it, as well as himself when he told several people to re-add him on Skype after being blocked. He refused to take no for an answer, and periodically some people had to sit him down. I remember that Saber would leave a lectured comment about this, but obviously he wasn't going to learn. Some people felt so uncomfortable with him that they felt they were being stalked by this dude. Much to my previous encounter, he faded away over time, only this one took a few more years. Coming to the tail end of 2012, I attended Equestria LA. It was very exciting as I was able to attend a Brony convention for the first time. I met Paleo, Saber, and AC Racebest in person, and I would laugh at anything they would do coming underway. But there was one person who recognized my work, and I found it a bit of a big deal at first because I was always left under the radar. This was especially considering I was under 1,000 subscribers. However, this backfired really hard when he was following both me and my ex everywhere we went. He followed us when we were at a vendor hall, he followed us when we were getting food, and he followed us when we attended another panel. This was a situation where because he knew about my content, he seemed to assume he could be friends with me. It was way too strong of an approach, and he also didn't take my personal space into account. He even stated that he's sorry if I felt he was stalking me. To which, if that's what you think, then you just stop following me. Apparently this was more common with Bliss, to where even nasty situations happen on her end, and there were several eyewitnesses. But I won't dispel on that since that's on her end. All three of these had a huge thing in common: not taking personal space accountable, and coming across as stalking behavior. Long story short, don't ever follow people you idolize around, especially if they're doing something to decompress themselves, like grab a bite to eat or rest at a hotel. That is a textbook definition of stalking behavior. But even after mentioning that, the next approach was the absolute worst. In the spring of 2013, I encountered someone who not only had just stalking behavior, but borderline harassment. It caused me to have a bit of paranoia, and this would eventually be a running issue with me for the next couple of years. This person in particular added me and wanted me to do a fan dub with him where I would be Fluttershy and he would be Rainbow Dash. Annoyingly, he would randomly Skype call me on my phone without consent. Many times I told him not to do that, or else I'll block him. This was especially because at that time, I was at an intern job, and I could get fired if I didn't keep my phone quiet. The only time I ever needed to use my phone was for any emergencies. So, in short, I had to sign off my Skype to avoid any further issues. But at home, once again, he called me without consent, and I gave my word and blocked him. What followed was him trying to get back to me with multiple Skype accounts, using his friends to drag me in calls and sending me DMs on social media, even going as far as to say he has depression and shove it down my throat to make me look bad after I warned him. He refused to take no for an answer. He refused to accept his consequences of calling me without consent. He fucking tried to get a hold of me non-stop for hours. The stubborn behavior got so bad that I had to register a new Skype account and re-add my other contacts so that he wouldn't pester me anymore. And thankfully, that was that. I have never felt so terrified online before, and I've been an online content creator since the mid-2000s. Things didn't get any better in 2014, which was my Season 4 reviewing era. Some asshole added me on Skype to accuse me of sending Amy King and Roger death threats when I not only didn't do that, but I even made a video talking about how immoral that was. So he assumes I did the thing that I would never condone anybody else doing? What the fuck made him draw that conclusion? Simple. Because I was angry in the Philly Vanilli video because Pinky made Idiot Fluttershy cry. This was a very common complaint people had with me, which was nothing new. He also criticized my choices of liking Spike at Your Service and not Magic Duel, which, if you ask me, that's just fucking petty. Now that one was obviously not a fan, but from then on, because of how much worse my paranoia has gotten, I never wanted to accept any future requests ever again. This did change when I got one from Finn, who I briefly recognized from a few of his videos, and I slowly began to open up a little on who wanted to add me on any social media. At that point, I didn't stumble upon these types of people for years. Bless that cinnamon roll, he was somewhat of a good luck charm to me. But finally, here's some new material to add to the conversation and what not to do. Starting off with was an analyst wannabe in 2015. He added me on Skype and he asked me to collaborate with him on an episode review. Upon watching a few of his videos to get an idea, they already started rubbing me the wrong way. First off, his Pony OC lacked any sort of charisma and came off as if somebody was trying hard to be edgy, mainly because of his ugly color scheme. It also didn't help that this formula was overly categorized and everything, and thus coming off so artificial. Regardless, I asked him why he wanted to collaborate with me, and his reason? Because he wanted to be like the other analysts like me, Bliss, Digibrony, and many others. No! This is the wrong way to start being friends with others online. I even remember hearing someone at a con panel stating that if you're making content for the sake of popularity, you're doing it for the wrong reason. It's one thing if you want to start making content out of inspiration, but don't do it thinking you'll get a free pass and be an exception to the rule and attempting to get close to someone you idolize. This especially gives a really bad name to beginner content creators who legitimately want to make good and fun content. That's what boils my blood sometimes. But what's more ridiculous was that he threw a pity party, acting self-loathing, and beating himself up when he was bothering me again. And I knew what he was doing. He was trying to garner sympathy from me and force me to have a change of heart and then collaborate with him. Nope, not buying it. I soon blocked him afterwards, and I later found out he was a creep on other girls and female analysts. The most insulting thing was that after everything he was called out for, including a commentary video, he defended himself with autism. Unfortunately, it's a common defense that happens online, and I fucking hate it. I too have Asperger's, which is the highest functioning state of autism. But I know right from wrong, and I take responsibilities of working at a job and budgeting my paycheck and covering bills. It's called adulting. Use it, son. A better example in my experience of who started out as being a content creator was Nicky V. MLP. He didn't try to come off edgy or trying to be cool or somebody he was not. He did his own thing and was laid back in tone as I watched this top 10 favorite cartoon shows. It was a cute little video with a good speaking voice to match his bubbly personality. Upon meeting him at the Rift Cafe chat, we started up pretty strong and decided to collaborate together. When it comes to starting off with producing content, having a collaboration with someone, including who you idolize, doesn't automatically indicate you're buddy-buddy with them. I collaborated with Silverquill and Josh Scorcher at one point, but we hardly talked together. Even if there was a friendship developed by a collaboration, problems can still happen to one another. It has happened before. A lot. But the biggest and most recent issue I have with people who desperately tried to get close with those who they idolize is misusing Patreon. While this wasn't something perceived as ill intent, it's still a disgusting act, period. I stumbled upon two of these cases where I got two major pledges back to back. By default, whenever I do get a pledge, I take the time out of my day to get to know whomever it is and give my word in exchanging perks that I have, including a Discord name so that we can add each other and fulfill the perks provided. And in doing so, I invited them to my server and let other supporters interact and so forth. The first of these two was very clingy, very awkward, and had an extremely bad habit of making others uncomfortable. I sat him down in a call once to lay down the simple rules. Unfortunately, things got worse afterwards when he was called out for allegedly plagiarizing some artwork when he attempted to make his OC. Drama was stirred up in my server, and my friends had to pitch in to give detailed criticism. During that day, I started a call with several people to talk to him more, since my one-on-one call wasn't enough. The whole time, he didn't show up. Instead, he ignored everything we were telling him the next day by posting irrelevant messages as if nothing ever happened. To add insult to injury, I was DM'd by one of my friends that he invited himself in his Steam game without consent, and it turned out he was a plagiarist all along. This is once again being entitled, and what's worse, this was all because he pledged to me. I felt like I was being taken advantage of. And it wasn't the last time either, as the second patron was having major struggles with his social cues. Luckily, he was willing to listen in on a call and not ignore anything we were telling him. Unfortunately, he refused to take no for an answer when he was blocked by one of my friends. In doing so, he pestered people into getting him unblocked. Just like the ones who I encountered in my younger years. I did not want that to happen again. So not long afterwards, he was removed from my server. This happened twice in a row, and now I can't even trust who I get on Patreon. From now on, if you pledge to me, or anyone for that matter, it better be because you want to support them and not assume, I pledged GoldenFox, I get to be buddy-buddy with Senpai. No. That's not what it's there for. It's for providing financial support, whether it's having to pay a hefty bill, considering that it's kind of my second job while managing a real-life job, or if I want to save up money to update my equipment for producing better content for you guys. That's the big return along with other perks, like giving a shout-out or joining a group call. So after dispelling all this, I hope this gives you an idea when it comes to wanting to be friends with whom you look up to. On the surface, it may sound simple, and to some, maybe it is, but anything can be taken the wrong way, which is why I have this for an answer as to how to be friends with whom you idolize. There is no solid answer. There's no secret passcode or magic spell that solves the issue, and any possible answer provided is not going to guarantee you anything. Hell, it may be abused afterwards. It's all a matter of trial and error. You win some, you lose some. This isn't a movie or a fantasy about living the dreams of someone you idolize. This is the real world. I know that's an unpleasant answer to hear, but the reality of the matter is, appreciating someone for their work doesn't automatically make you privileged to be friends with your idols. Being a content creator doesn't automatically make you privileged to be friends with your idols. Providing financial support doesn't automatically make you privileged to be friends with your idols, especially that one. Friendship isn't a thing money buys, nor should it be. That's scummy behavior. Friendship has to be earned. Just being supportive can be enough with a natural sense of loyalty. Enjoying the content and maybe providing some support if you want can lead to have a closer connection, depending on your boundaries. As Maddie said before, friendships grow organically. And to break that down, it takes time, it takes patience, it takes respect. No matter who you are or what you do, you're not the exception to the rule. And I mean that for everyone. Some of my longtime supporters like Edwin Flores and Science Steel Rail are huge examples of that. They didn't just pledge assuming they'd be friends with me, they did it out of the volition in supporting me. That's all it took. And if anything, I would encourage you to not be so eager about being friends with other idols in the first place, because despite said personal boundaries, you never know who you're dealing with. This includes those who have given personal information to Lightning Bliss because of the idolizing behavior. Yeah, that actually happened. And that's extremely dangerous. Considering the shitstorm a lot of us went through in early 2018 with you-know-who, that should be a first and major clue to what risk you're getting into on the internet. This is also including the following years of other familiar names who may be egregious and disgusting. I found out last year about Mandopony and I was utterly shocked at what his true colors really were. Moments like these really bring another huge point here. A lot of these big names can very well be criminals themselves, and it happens more often than you think because with their fame and recognition being so inflated, they can be in the mindset that they're above authority and don't have to take any moral obligations into account. Now that does go way beyond the point here, but safety is a matter to consider. And the final point to all this is that if things don't work out, things don't work out. If someone blocks you on social media, learn to accept the consequences. The more you refuse, the worse you become. To roughly quote from Lyle Convoy when he rips someone apart, when someone tells you no, you accept no, and you move on with your life. And that's never taken into account here because with idolizing, they badly want to be part of something so bad they never give up, as if they feel left out and wanted to be part of the cool kids or in a circle equivalent of rock stars. In reality though, we're all just human beings. And more importantly, we're strangers. You don't know us, whether you're familiar with our track record or not. As I stated earlier with those who may be criminals, you don't know what you're getting into. I didn't know about Doug Walker and how abusive he was with his previous colleagues. I didn't know about Mandopony and how creepy he was. I don't know if my idols like James Rolfe or Gerard the Completionist are hiding something shady inside a lock and key. So even though this may not compete well with Maddie or Bliss's, I still hope this was informative and helpful. I hope that the additional pieces of advice have provided something new to the table, and I hope that overall you're willing to understand everything. And with that, thank you for listening in. Anyone who enjoys my work, I'm always grateful for that. That's all I ask for. Otherwise, don't take such extremes. You will regret it. Until next time, I'm GoldenFox, and take care.
Bah!